We're live
And alive.
and alive.
Yes.
It's Modern Relics podcast. I'm Angel. He's Lucky. You know the vibes. We're watching to see if the Trump deadline to Iran meant that missiles were going to fly, and apparently there's a ceasefire for 2 weeks negotiated just before all this happened. So then we tuned into some random, I don't lean one way or another YouTube live stream that had like video cameras in the Middle East, and we saw some tracers going up, like anti-missile AA style guns for a minute, but nothing seems to be occurring. So if we start shooting at Iran during the broadcast and we catch wind of it, I suppose we'll switch topics. But for now, I think we're just going to pod, and that's that.
Yeah, I think it was interesting because apparently the ceasefire negotiations came through Pakistan, which I thought was kind of weird that it wasn't coming directly from Iranian intel, or the government of Iran. Why is Pakistan? I mean, Pakistan obviously probably has some vested interest in what's going on there, obviously being neighbors and such, but why use them as the proxy? I don't understand. And did Iran even agree to this? Did we just agree to it without, I don't know. We will see, but yeah. How was besides that? Sorry, folks. Yeah, we had to kind of like check in before, and it was exactly at 5, because 3:30 in the afternoon in Iran is.
It's like we have a lot of shit to talk about, which we'll throw out the window if bombs start going off, I assume. Week, I don't know. I lost track of Easter Sunday for most of Easter Sunday, but I did tune into a Calvary service for a little bit, which was cool. And cool. Didn't have a whole heck of a lot going on, to be honest with you. How was your week?
It was fairly interesting. Prior to a couple of days to Easter, which Easter was actually a lot like a lot of our it's becoming a pattern for us now for our holidays, which used to be boisterous and full of people and neighbors and friends and family all coming over, and we didn't have anyone over. My mom even went to my sister's. So we had just us and the kids, and their significant others, and that was it. We kind of did a low key. We had a bunch of food like we were going to make, and we kind of trimmed down to just the basics. Yeah. And it was fine. We watched Passion of the Christ, which we do every year on Easter. And, I was there for 3.5 services for church because we had pretty high security measures going on. So not only just for the normal basic heightened risk on Easter Sunday, which typically is the one of the holidays that tends to get...
It's like every church's Super Bowl, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So as far as security goes, for sure. And but this year we were a little bit on a much more heightened level due to the fact that we had this local guy who his name is Ryan McClintock, and he's a 33-year-old man who lifelong resident here. A lot of people in the community know him and have varying opinions of him and his behavior. A lot of people like him and love him. A lot of people said now he's always been weird. But up like the Friday before, maybe even the Thursday before, I just became aware of it on Friday. He started posting anywhere between 15 to 20 videos a day, short little clips of just the camera focused on him, of him going on schizophrenic level tirades about our local sheriff, our pastor and church, another local large church in the area and its pastor. And it was kind of regurgitated rhetoric from one of our local lunatics who ran for sheriff, the cowboy guy. It seemed like he had just interviewed him a couple weeks prior. And so, like, they had been in contact quite a bit. In fact, there's reports his sister from Ryan's sister that he was heavily influenced and consistently in contact with the fake rhinestone cowboy and his crazy wife. That they were heavily influencing him, but apparently he was supposed to be on meds and wasn't. And he kept making these hyper threatening videos where he said he was going to come arrest everybody because the whole lot of everybody were all involved in some form of human trafficking, and that he needed to arrest the sheriff, and that he was calling on the Russian mafia from Spokane and different motorcycle clubs like the Mongols and Hells Angels to come assist him. And he kept making these threats where he was going to hang everybody and hang cops and hang people, and it just kept escalating and escalating to the point where and he was even attacking my sister and her coffee stands for whatever reason we have yet to figure out, but saying that he was going to take her business and take, all the girls were going to leave working for my sister. It was just very, very strange. And he kept getting more and more aggressive. Like, he was like yelling at the microphone and the screen and cussing and being crazy, and a lot of white around his eyes. And he ended up making one last video where he was like, "Tell my son I love him. I'm taking my baseball bat. I'm going to go rectify this. If anybody wants to join me, I'm going down to the Coeur d'Alene police station and I'm going to go make things right." And instead he went down to the sheriff, where the old sheriff's office used to be. They've since moved it, and now that is the prosecutor's office, but it's connected to the jail.
Yeah.
So it's where the jail's always been in this area. And then the next video is him walking through the parking lot with a baseball bat, and he starts smashing out all the windows of the building, and gets himself, and then just walks away, gets himself surrounded, the whole street shut off, and arrested. And because of the videos he made and a bunch of it, he had a litany of charges, but one of them was terrorism. And so he got lit up on terrorism charges, and he just went to court, and he has a $200,000 bond to get out. Yeah, so that was why we were on high alert. He did get picked up on Saturday evening, but we still had a pretty high alert for Sunday, and had quite a big of security staff there. But yeah, that was an interesting week. Still
Sounds
not
like
a lot
it.
of answers, and a lot of scrambling around in the community about why and who and like what was this about and who's to blame, and is it that he's a criminal, or is he just part of the mental health crisis, or a
Where's
combination
his
of both?
Epstein list proving all these allegations and usual
Right,
stuff?
exactly.
Yeah.
All that. So that's been kind of the buzz around this area. It'll die down once they forget about him. But outside of that, that was pretty much my week. I worked and I did that, and just kind of helping the wife with whatever I can as far as her campaign goes. So
Nice.
but yeah, that's it for me. So, hey, real quick.
Yeah.
Last night, you sent me a text message.
Yeah.
You had a neighbor that was distressed. Is everything okay in that situation?
It seems to be. I saw that neighbor leave his house this morning, and then just a minute ago in his usual automobile. So I think they took his wife in for something. Last time it was because she was really dehydrated, and so I hope that everyone's okay. But I haven't seen a lot of scuttlebutt over there with his daughter or himself or anything like that. So I don't know, but I'm hoping things are okay.
Okay.
One of these days we're gonna get you a camera that doesn't zoom out and stay zoomed out, where you're all fuzzy.
I have it intentionally blurred so that nobody can recognize me.
Yeah,
There we go.
because you're a Fed.
Right. Yeah. This isn't my real voice either.
Yeah. Pull one of those
Anyway,
Mission Impossible masks off. And... Ah.
kind of a choppy start to things due to the fact that like we have typically a flow to our topics.
Yeah, a little bit.
But in this
Little bit.
but in this particular case, it's a little rough because we don't have any. Like we weren't sure where we were going to go tonight because of the
Yeah.
Iran situation. So, what did you have top of mind that we could kind of explore
Honestly,
until the
like
bombs drop?
I did a little soul searching, to be honest with you. And I have 4 pages of notes, so I'll try to get through them. But somebody recently asked me about like why I'm into cars, you know, and I think there's a canned answer for everyone. Like, why are you into this stuff? Why do you like baseball? Why do you like firearms? Why do you like snowboarding? Whatever. Right. And I started to kind of pick it apart, and I was like, well, I don't know, because I wasn't really saturated with car related stuff when I was little. Just like nobody else in the family was really into cars. And I think some of the cool parts of my childhood is my dad built a Toyota Land Cruiser. He has a 1969 Toyota Land Cruiser, and he built an engine in the garage and eventually put it in there and like did a small block Chevy conversion in it, and it's pretty cool. And I helped him when I was a little guy, but it was mostly like hand me a screwdriver type of stuff. It wasn't like, you know, I'm getting in there and doing, you know, the testing for how to balance the.
I was going to say, your dad was more of a maintenance mechanic rather than like a car enthusiast.
Yeah, he would engineer solutions to stuff.
He liked cars, but at a distance because he never really had the money to get into cars.
I didn't really think my dad liked anything. Like, he wasn't a fishing guy. He hunted once in a while. And he has an appreciation for firearms that grew into more of a pastime, probably because I got into them and kind of opened his eyes to a whole bunch of cool stuff as time went on. But I started thinking about it, and I want to posit an idea on why I'm a particular car guy. And maybe this will resonate and maybe this won't, because I don't think you're much of a car guy either, generally.
I'm a great appreciator, but I'm not an avid. You know, I can look at something and go, that's a nice car, you know, and then have the most basic of knowledge so that I don't look like an idiot when I'm around car people.
Right.
But, you know, but as far as like it being a passionate, no, I've never had that. I learned basic maintenance mechanics from my stepdad when I was young, but outside of that, never really needed, my interests were in other places. Yeah. But I understand why people like cars. I get it. I get the passion. Because they're cool, you know, but it's never been something that really kind of drew me to it as much as like you or other of my friends. So,
yeah. And I wonder if it's a bit of I'm like on the elder millennial, super late Gen X part of this, but that'll kind of tailor into the discussion a little bit. So generally around ages 8 to 14, a bunch of psychology says that our brains attach really strong emotional meaning to stuff. It's called the reminiscence bump, and that's where memories from adolescence kind of stick harder and feel a little more vivid later on in life. And so that
makes sense.
It was never really about the Lamborghini poster on the wall for me as a kid. But if I were to go back to the 1990s, not nostalgically, but just as an environment, there's a few important things. Like, just aside from our young hero, the Cold War had recently ended. The economy was expanding. Technology was still exciting and new, and it wasn't really overwhelming. This predates the .com boom and all that. But the car, for the first time, probably in entertainment history, was presented to audiences not as just transportation, but as a full-on character. Like it had its own personality. So what it represented in media at this moment in time was lifestyle stuff, freedom stuff, identity. Now, later when we get to the Fast and the Furious, and this hits at a pretty pivotal time, you see characters in that movie that were not only cool, but belonged to like a subculture of a subculture. They had trust in one another. They kind of marched to the beat of their own drum, but each of their cars was like featured as part of a character to their lifestyle. And it's kind of who you thought you'd become, right? Because in the 90s, cars were sort of central figures in pop culture programming. In some cases, they were the characters that shows were built around. So if Knight Rider in the 1980s planted a seed that a car could be a companion or some part of a central program, by the 90s, they weren't just cool, they were aspirational extensions of who you could become. And it was everywhere. Like there was a show called Viper. I don't remember know if you ever saw, but it was like the car that could do like a whole bunch of cool shit. And it was really like a cheeky way to like introduce the Dodge Viper in the 1990s at that point in time. But in 97,
that was a commercial show for sure.
Right. Yeah. It was, and it's horrible. But I mean, when you you have 3 television stations to watch, at some point you're going to catch Viper. You know what I mean? And for me, that's kind of all I had was that and like Star Trek The Next Generation. And by the time MASH came on after the news, it was like all bets are off. We'll see you tomorrow kind of thing. But in 1997, and this hits me at like 12, 13 years old, a video game called Gran Turismo comes out. Now, I didn't have a cool video game playing device back then, but a bunch of my friends did. And that introduced a shitload of cars into my life at that point. And not just places to race these cars, but an entire garage that you can collect them in. And then I get to keep all those cars, and each car, it gives you like a wildly descriptive list of the parts on every one of the cars, all the information about them, how to modify them, like what kinds of things you can do to the suspension and move stuff around. But the way they made that game is they actually recorded real engine noises from those cars and introduced those into the game's programming. So like the NSX sounded different than a Toyota Supra sounded, and like a Nissan GTR sounded different than those two. But it introduced a whole bunch of like, oh, this is really, really cool. And I got to tinker with stuff on my own. And it was kind of like my own, like no 2 garages were like, you know what I mean? So then kind of part 2 of my thought process is like, well, what happened to a lot of millennials entering life after playing with toy cars and video games? And reality kind of punched a bunch of guys like me in the stomach because future self didn't end up with the 1994 big turbo Toyota Supra that I had in the video game. The desire gets delayed, but it doesn't get abandoned. So then later on, when you finally reach a point in your life when you can afford these things, it's not just a purchase. It's kind of like a psychological closure event for a lot of us. And I wasn't the only one. There was like a ton of dudes that were like, oh my God, I want that car. And that's why you're seeing like a renaissance of these 90s sports cars that are like 4 times the value that, there's some rules in the United States where certain cars that weren't released over here were illegal to be over here, except they had to meet a 25-year aging criteria. Then they could be imported over to the States and driven as a classic vehicle, essentially. So it's kind of like telling your younger self, like, hey, we made it. Like, you can finally afford to go get these fucking cars that you've been dreaming about most of your younger self. And it ties into how you felt when you were experiencing for the first time tinkering with all these different cars, I think. And then there's kind of the self-concept theory that just carries on from that, right? Like, we all carry an internal story of who we are. Doesn't matter what generation you're from. And for us, especially, this story really gets disrupted for millennials. If you think about it, the wage didn't grow. We had almost 10 years of a deadweight economy. The housing crisis fucked most of my generation. There's like so many versions of like delay that like a lot of people that are starting late at my age, like I bought my first house, the one I'm seated in right now, in 2022 at, like fucking 36 years old, 37 years old. You know what I'm saying? So like climbing back into the like, oh, maybe I could afford one of these things and making that justification is kind of like my identity on 4 wheels from way back when I was a kid fucking with all this stuff. So it was really the only thing I could kind of imprint on when I was playing those games or talking about them with my friends and stuff like that. and then timing, right? Like we're now entering our peak earning years in our 40s. This is just kind of the statistical curve. The cars that we loved are still around. We have access to money or at least financing to get them, so the justification becomes much easier now that we're adults. And the old emotional imprints are resurfacing really, really hard. So when you see a 1994 big turbo Toyota Supra in a parking lot, it's like, you guys have no idea what that car represents. And most people don't give a shit. This isn't a Lamborghini. It's not a McLaren. It's not a Ferrari. Like it's a fucking Toyota from the 1990s. But up here, it's that video game garage build out that I've always tinkered with forever and ever and ever, you know? So whenever you see a guy like me obsessing over cars, I think there's a little more to it than that. I don't think it's, you know, I'm not going to blame the generational gaps on my desire to have cars, but I really do think that was kind of all I had to focus on back then. And
Right.
It never really goes away. It just kind of sticks with you. So obviously
Well,
being able to do these things requires, how did you set your life up? You know, are you working toward goals? Can you afford these things? But for those of us that can or can't, it's still in there. That's kind of what makes us car guys, I think. And then when the 2000s roll around, all bets are off. There's a huge boom in my generation of like teenage to early 20s to mid 20s of just car culture hits an all-time high in the US because of, you know, the ramping media around Fast and the Furious and different stuff like that. And so that's kind of, for guys like me, maybe a little bit more to the story, I think. And someone asked me that, and I was like, I don't have a way to answer that, but I'll work on it. So
I remember when you were younger, you know, 14, 15, 16, 17, that range, like
yeah,
you were in a car club.
yeah,
Yeah. So this isn't something that came to you in your latter years and you decided to adopt it. This is something that you've always, like,
yeah,
you were in a car club and your car was never properly operating, you know, on, like, it would run for a while and then it would be down,
yeah.
and then it would run for a while and then it would be down. But like, you know, we had a buddy, Mike Bright, who had a car that, like, he was very proud of. That was kind of the Mike Bright personality car. So I totally understand what you're talking about,
Mhm.
about like and it reminds me of like the old cartoon that might be a little too old for you. You might remember it, but the show Mask, where the car and the person, their helmet and everything, like the car was as much of a character as it
Yeah.
as the guy driving it, you know. And so there was a lot of that connectivity in the 80s and 90s that you're speaking of that actually humanized and gave those cars personalities. And then, like you said, with Gran Turismo, it then took it to the next level where it wasn't just cool on the outside, it was also cool on the inside. And
Yeah.
you could actually do what it was like Legos in video
Mhm.
game land, but for cars. And so I totally understand psychologically the concept, because even for me, who's squarely Gen X, there's a lot of guys my age who have that same, what was that 8 to 14, what was that
Yeah.
called? What was that?
So the psychological term that I picked up from my notes, let me get back to the top. It refers to it as a reminiscence bump.
The reminiscence bump for
yeah.
my generation typically is the toys. We
Yeah.
were the golden age of toy era. I fell right into that. All of the stuff that our parents could not afford to buy us
Mhm.
or refused to buy us because it was too silly, but we really wanted it because, man, the marketing on those toys for Saturday morning cartoons or after school cartoons was an onslaught
Yeah.
of, and some of the best marketing ever made. They made full cartoons based off of the Thundercats and He-Man and all of these things, Transformers, which were just advertisements for toys, and they were cool toys.
Mhm.
And so a lot of dudes in their mid 40s to mid 50s have this kind of psychological connection to that time frame.
Yeah.
Where you kind of developed, and there's nostalgia built in to all of those things that they collect a lot of toys. There's channel after channel after
Oh,
channel
yeah.
of dudes who collect nothing but those old toys or the new models, the
Yeah.
remakes of them now, stuff like that. But they, they go hunt them down. There's whole stores dedicated to the 80s toy craze.
Yeah, and like
So
I'm not a big, Japan culture forward enjoyer. Like I don't get deep
yeah,
into anime and all that stuff. Like I have a deep appreciation for a lot of the stuff. But throughout most of their history in their entertainment, man and machine are very symbiotic in a lot of the
yes,
content that's produced, whether it's cultural or it's the way people work, factory workers in real life, or if it's the cartoons, Gundams, and different
oh yeah,
Starfighter stuff. And
absolutely.
like it's very like ever present there. So bringing at least a twist of that over when our car boom is happening and it's centered around
And that's
Japanese imported
the
sports
other thing
cars
and that's what I was actually going to touch
makes a
on, is
ton of
because
sense.
you specifically, but a lot of these guys that have that kind of nostalgia push for that car culture, um, it isn't Mopars and it isn't muscle cars. It
Mhm.
isn't the American made ones. You guys can appreciate those, but most of it is with import cars.
Yeah.
And that culture is growing where the Mopar and muscle car guys are fathers,
Yeah.
or and there are some of the younger kids who are now kind of getting into them. Like my daughter wants an old early 60s Ford truck,
Hmm.
that kind of stuff. Like they have the secular kind of concept of
Yeah.
reaching back, and they're kind of getting into that stuff. But our generation, uh the import model cars, because I mean you were talking Supras and
Yep.
Nissans and all the import models, those tend to have our generations kind of in lock on what
Well,
the
I used to argue with guys older too about that. And like in my 30s, I really came around to American classic cars and muscle cars and stuff. But the argument was kind of, they would laugh and say, what, Japan's answer to Hiroshima and Nagasaki are those fucking Hondas that you're driving around. And it's like, ha ha ha, get them through the pocketbook kind of thing. But realistically, they would spout from their spires. There's no replacement for displacement. And then we would slap a turbo on a 2-liter car, and a car that weighs 11 to 1500 pounds less, and squeak another 185 to 200 horsepower out of them and smoke these Mustang dudes and stuff all the time. And it was like, well, it makes a ton of sense because we can do all that and get better gas mileage kind of thing. So there was a big divide there. But now I've kind of really come around on all this stuff where I'm like, I can super appreciate cars just because I like what they are, but I really
yeah
enjoy building them because I started off driving 2-liter Volkswagens around because it's what I had,
yeah
shitty, falling apart, so I learned how to build 1.8 T swapped, you know, Volkswagen and Audis until I got to the age where I realized, parts for this car are only made in one spot on Earth, and that's over in Wolfsburg, Germany. Like, these Hondas are awfully cheap by comparison. Holy shit, you can get parts anywhere for these. And then I went,
right
through the Honda thing and later into the Nissan thing, and I just super had an affinity for those. But you're right, there was a very big age and cultural gap between what a fast car was and sort of their reference point, especially our parents' generation, the Bullets and the movies of old that have the Mustang or the Camaro or the that kind of stuff,
yeah
to the types of stuff that we were getting subjected to. But it really was in my few
I
days
was
worth of
wondering.
research on it, the first time I think pop culturally speaking, cars were kind of the point of the story rather
Yeah,
than just a background asset that was cool because James Bond had a pretty girl in a cool car and
I mean,
a
starting in
Walther
probably like
PBK.
Dukes of Hazard was probably part of the original of that.
Yeah.
The Scooby van. There's some that like really were the progenitors of when we started getting Kit from Knight Rider, and
Yeah.
then moving forward from there. But because those cars did had personality and were a character of the show.
Yeah, and I
Like
love
the General
spaceships
Lee.
and sci-fi
Yeah,
stuff. But this was a lifestyle. This was attainable. There's a dude that's
Yeah.
driving that machine and he's cool. And that's my future self. I want to be as cool as this guy in some fashion. And I think that really stuck for a lot of dudes because that was kind of the stuff that we were consuming back then, you know?
Was it because you were looking for family?
Yes, I was looking for family like Dominic Toretto, living my life 1/4 mile at a time, behind my controller sticks on the PlayStation in my buddy's parents' basement.
Just racing for family.
I
Yeah.
gotta tell you, dude, that when Fast and Furious came out, that exploded suddenly.
Oh yeah.
Anyone's whose mom had a Honda Civic, you know, there was a hand-me-down car, just started throwing wheels and mufflers on them, and it was like nothing anyone had ever seen. You know what I mean? Like it became a place where you could then go meet other people that were into the exact same shit that you were for no money at all in almost every parking lot at a pizza joint or whatever on a Friday night in any city in America. And it was the thing to go do. So, yeah, you're kind of right. Like kind of searching for family a little bit. But that's, you know, not to placate the movie quote anymore, but I don't know. I think that's the best answer I can come up with on why I've always kind of been into cars and why I still find them fascinating and fun, even though it can be an expensive pain in the ass for sure. But you know, I like being under the hood, wrenched on stuff and turning slow things into fast things and making them slightly shinier than they were when I found them.
I think that car guys find also a mental peace when they're even in the frustration of something that may not be going to plan. It's a place where their whole brain is being taken up and they don't have to worry about bombing Iran. They don't have to worry about their bills. They don't have to worry about, and I think men need that.
Car guys are worrying about bills. Shouldn't have bought that part. But no. But here's why. It's the Swiss Army knife of shit to do. Like on the one hand, wrenching on it can be very cathartic in some way or therapeutic or a way to get away from stuff. But you can have as much fun driving alone and just putting your thoughts in order on some back roads. You can turn it into a competition if you go to any number of Friday night drag racing or autocross event or whatever your car's built to go do. And there's the pride points of the occasional light to light race that occurs when you're a young man and don't know any better. You know, we were racing for money back in the day. Statute of limitations are far up on this, and I don't live in that city anymore. But I'm not shitting you. We used to carry Sharpie markers around, and if I beat your ass in a race, I'd sign your license plates, and you'd have to drive around with my signature on your car. And that's just kind of how it went, you know. But all of those things can be done with the same vehicle. And for the cost of a tank of gas and insurance, you're off to the races or not, you know, proverbially. Right. So yeah, it's kind of the Swiss Army knife of like arresting yourself from the problems of society and doing something fun in any number of ways at the cost of turning the key and stomping on the gas pedal. So I think you're right there.
Yeah, I was wondering if that bump occurred with our parents' generation because they had far less. I mean, their nostalgia was different. They always go, I remember when that was a field, and you know, but they didn't have they had some television marketing towards them, obviously, but you know, when you think about the fact that, you know, my mother and your father, they were both graduating high school in the early 70s.
Yeah.
So they didn't, you think about what they were doing and how limited their access to television was and marketing was. Like, there was marketing, but it wasn't the bombardment and onslaught that we had in our generation. They really started to fine tune it. So I wonder if that bump was just different for them, and they don't have attachment to things, to material possessions the way that we do. That it's a different kind of bump from 8 to 14. That developmental stage.
Well, most of Vietnam was going on during that period of time. They're getting out of all that. There's a gas crisis and an economical crunch, and that's when the first time we see stuff like imported cars from Japan coming in because of the oil crisis and stuff like that. Hollywood starts making kind of a splash, and the movie industry really picks up at that point. And then this is like the adolescence of the cocaine era in the late 70s that's starting to boom up. So yeah, I think for their generation, finding relative ways to connect with other like-minded people was probably the number one goal, more so than in your case the action figure, or in my case the automobile. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Interesting.
Let's bring them in. Where are the boomers? Come on in, guys. Let's talk. No, I don't know. I could be way wrong on a lot of this stuff, but it sure started to fall into place when I was looking at it. Like, this kind of represented the dude I always wanted to be when I was a kid, and it was just delayed gratification by 25 years because couldn't find a job. Job market still sucks for different reasons nowadays. Didn't make a whole lot of money, couldn't buy a house, like just all these like roadblock, wait. So I think that's kind of why I'm into them. Maybe that resonates with other listeners. I'm not sure, but it's the best answer I had to that question. So.
Yeah, I think it's solid. I think it's a solid answer. I think the analysis of it is correct. I think I think you nailed it on why we develop into the interests that we have, so I still love comic books. I still love toys. I'm nearly 50 years old, so like, which is, whoa, that phrase hit me weird. But, yeah. I'll be turning 48 this year for those who are wondering, but yeah, it's definitely a very weird understanding that I think we just kind of gloss over the idea of why people's interests we just kind of assume, they have that interest, and we don't really think about why they have that interest.
Or when you think about it, it doesn't make sense to somebody who's not into the same shit. Like,
right.
Why would you spend all your money on this stupid car? Cars just get you from point A to point B. Like, well,
right.
Not for me.
Yeah.
Like, there's some people that take it way too far. Like, the best suit in a man's wardrobe, or the most expensive suit in a man's wardrobe, is the automobile that he drives. And it's like, all right, I'm not that guy. You know what I'm saying? I'm not into the men's style and all that stuff, but it definitely represents a lot more, especially how I grew up, because, couldn't go anywhere, lived in the middle of fucking nowhere. Like, it was a quest every time you got to leave the house and go into town for stuff. You know what I'm saying? So it was, it was a chance to soak up as much life as you could at that point. So by the time you get your driver's license, all bets are off. Like, I would probably have sold kidneys for enough gas money to continue driving to my friend's house and doing stuff.
And I think that resonated heavily into your adulthood, where the car represents that type of freedom that you could not acquire at a younger age. Like, and so it literally represents not only the accessibility to that freedom, but also that freedom being what you want it to be. That, sure, freedom in a minivan is still freedom, but freedom in a very fast import sports car is a totally different set of freedom. So
it's telling your younger self, like, hey dude, you made it. Like, it's okay to dream about some of these things. And I think the longer a meaningful goal takes to accomplish, the more weight that it accumulates over time. And if you're a stubborn ass about it and don't just give up on it, then, like me, 20, 30 years later, you can start to realize, like, oh, well, maybe I can budget that in and get one of those, weird 90s or 2000s cars that I've always liked. So Anyway,
Yeah.
but
right.
yeah, I like my car. It's not the fastest, it's not the prettiest, but it's a whole lot of fun, and I enjoy it a bunch. So, yeah.
Okay. Oh, do you want to do a quick check-in to see if we've bombed Iran before we get to the next
Let's go to the
next
Middle East. Let's see.
to our Middle East correspondent?
Yeah. Everybody says we're delaying the Iran deadline for 2 weeks. For 2 weeks to negotiate a 10-point peace process predicated on the idea that Iran reopens the Straits of Hormuz. Yeah. I mean, strong language around an entire civilization will die tonight if a deal isn't reached kind of thing. And then honestly, I'm kind of glad if everyone wants to come to the table, even if it's under duress, that they're gonna, because
Yeah, way better scenario.
it's better than bombing people,
Yeah.
I think.
What's next on the
Well,
on the item list?
you wanted to ask why now in 2026 is America going back to the moon? Who cares about this stuff? I do.
Yeah.
For reasons, but well, let's get into it. Why are we going back to the moon? What does Artemis mean to you?
So, to be quite honest and perfectly fair, I was so out of the loop on this story until basically launch day.
Yeah.
I had no idea they were prepping for this.
Yep.
I had no idea that and I still don't really know what the purpose is. Artemis 2 prepping for historic lunar orbit, taking them further from Earth than any previous humans. You got your 4 nearly AI looking chiseled astronauts that are pictured.
Like the way you described that right off the bat.
But I don't understand what political purpose this has, and it has to have a political purpose. This isn't for science, because with the economy that we have right now, this is a Blue Angels run to me. Yeah. This is basically a rah look at America, look at Space Force go. We are still pushing the boundaries of science and technology, and now's the time. I just don't really understand why. Like, I don't really like. It seems to me that we're missing a big chunk of the story, unless it's being told and I'm just missing the big chunk of the story that everyone else seems to just get just out of the pure excitement of going to the moon again. Now, obviously, the internet is full of concepts, ideas, and conspiracies, and this. A lot of people are saying that this has something to do with. There's been a lot of back and forth in the last week or two of revealing, and Trump saying that he was going to open up files for UFO stuff like that. I don't know. I don't think so, but I don't know. What is your thoughts on this? Because I just don't know why we're going here. It doesn't seem to make sense to me. I
have my own personal theories. This isn't rooted in anything, but it's just my hot take. I don't think it's so hot it'll burn your eyebrows, but we'll see. We'll see. A couple reasons. One, I think it's the Blue Angels rah piece, which cool, whatever. Two, I was under the impressions how up to speed I was under the impression we were going to land on the moon, not just fly around it and take pictures of the dark side.
That's what I thought too. So,
and then they're not even doing that. So I was kind of upset.
So why then? Why
commercially?
What's the point?
Commercially, there's an awful lot of conversation coming out of Elon Musk's camp about how much easier and cost efficient it will be to put AI data centers in space. So I think building a logistical avenue of how easy is that to get without just launching stuff from down here to up there and letting it float away, docking to it, and then turning stuff on? So I think there's going to be some data gathering there. He's also very interested in making Mars missions happen. The moon will become the what's the most popular truck stop in America right now? Like Flying J or something.
Bucky's.
The moon would probably become a Bucky's pre-launching stationary area for stuff like that in the future. Like there's some intelligence to gather there. I also think anytime there's a space mission, there's some secret surveillance stuff going on as a part of these missions that are never known to us until they're declassified 55 years from now.
And that's what I'm talking about, is that what is actually, like what this isn't just a Blue Angels run.
It's never just that. Like why spend the money on the coolest sightseeing you can when you take 3 to 4 of the most capable human beings in America at math and science and, flight and all this stuff and send them up there just so they can take some cool shots. I'm pretty sure we have a really nice Hubble replacement in the James Webb Space Telescope that can get very detailed photographs of the moon if it pointed at the moon and took photos of it. So I'm always a little, look at it with an eyebrow up like, really? What else are we doing up there? So I think there's definitely probably a conglomeration of all three of those ideas in some fashion, at least from a data perspective on the first two. But yeah, I don't see a big joyous occasion for any of this stuff. It's fun to watch rockets go up there, but if you're not landing on the moon and proving we can do it, and that this wasn't just, shot on a green screen in the 60s to win the space race, I'm not as excited about you slingshotting around it to take photographs and come back. I don't see the reason.
This might be a hot take. For someone like me who is steeped and buried in love and admiration for all things sci-fi.
Yeah.
I am a sci-fi fanatic. I always have been. Mm-hmm. I'm covered in Star Wars tattoos. Anybody who knows me knows that I love anything sci-fi. I have never been interested in being an astronaut from when I was a kid. I've never been excited about NASA or rockets going into space or moon landings or any of that stuff. It's never fascinated me. I don't care. In fact, it's never like I've never been the guy who gets excited about a rocket launch or anything. Now, if I see it happening, like I did a couple of years ago on my birthday, when I was in Lake Havasu and I saw the rockets from Elon putting up some satellites,
probably Starlink stuff. Yeah
and I was like, oh, that's cool, and we sat there and looked at it for a little bit, and then we ate our ice cream and went home. It's never fascinated me, and I just don't really care, and I don't know why. You would think of all people, I would be the one to be like, oh no, I can't wait till we start exploring space. But I think it's because of the fact that I am such a sci-fi fan that I come to the realization that there's nothing good out there.
There's nothing good out there.
There's nothing good out there.
No.
And it seems like a lot of work to get out there, to stay out there. It's like wanting to live at the bottom of the ocean. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nah, I don't want to go out there. I don't want to explore the stars. I don't want to go to Mars. I don't want to do anything. Like, it probably comes from a very deep-rooted kind of biblical worldview where I personally just don't believe in aliens and I don't believe anything is out there. So it's kind of a fruitless endeavor that I just don't really understand why. I guess if you don't have that worldview, you look up to the stars and you go, what is out there? I don't have that same curiosity. I can appreciate the beauty of a starlit sky, laying on a grassy hilltop and looking up with no light pollution and going up, looking up into the sky and going, wow, the stars are beautiful.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to them.
Yeah. Don't gaze
And
at
I
those
don't know what,
stars. That's not going to pay the bills.
yeah, I don't know if it's just practicality on my part
No, I'm
or
with
like,
you there, man. Like people ask me all the time, like, do you think there's life out there? And I'm like, 100% yes. This is full fact. If you're telling me there is no life outside of Earth in the universe, mathematics is not in your favor. Now let me tell you what I mean by that. If you find a bacteria in some cloud or some protein single-celled organism that qualifies as life, that's it.
right.
Do I think the little green men are out there, or that there's a xenomorph waiting to come? No, I don't. Like I really don't think there's a civilization. Happy to be wrong by my own logic. Math is not on my side or whatever, but I kind of carry the same worldview that you do, and it's incongruent with a lot of the history that I take markers from as far as a guide rod to both morality, purpose, and existence. So for me, it's hard to justify the sci-fi experience of all of that. But sure, if we find encapsulated in some, floating piece of ice out there that there's a bacteria or something that's qualifies as life, okay, I'm wrong. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, sure, right. I'm right. Sure, there's life, but that's kind of it for me. I don't think to the point you're making, I don't think there's, alien life out there waiting to be discovered or come conquer us. I don't know. And if there is, maybe we shouldn't go to Mars, Let's just hang out on the blue marble where we're at and figure out how to fix stuff down here, because that would help.
That's kind of where I'm at. If we're going to put that much energy into something, we should put all that energy into where we're at. That seems to be the talking point for every person on this planet, that this planet is broken and not right.
Yeah.
So why are we looking out there? And I don't know, people are like, oh, well, maybe the answers are out there. Well, I don't think so. I don't think that there's the answers out there.
We do have a pretty decent viewpoint on time and a pretty decent viewpoint on distance. So with the technology we have in a chemical powered rocket, it's unlikely we're going to find those answers out there. And that's where I get shot down with, well, it doesn't mean we need to stop looking, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, but when some non-0% of the population of this planet thinks the one we're on is flat, maybe the job's not done down here before we go up and explore. Maybe we should keep working on stuff down here. Just pointing that out, but yeah, I'm with you there. So it's a fun discussion.
Besides just all of the, my dislike for the idea of going to space personally, I just don't understand why in 2026, since we haven't gone around the moon, I was going to say landed on the moon, but we're not even doing that. Why now? Like, what would be the purpose of it happening now? And I thought as of like a couple years ago, we couldn't, because we couldn't make it through the Van Allen radiation belt anymore, and we lost the technology to do that.
I find it interesting that
now all of a sudden nobody's even talking about that.
Yeah.
When I heard NASA scientists on video saying we can't go anymore because of these reasons,
right? And
then now those reasons aren't even being discussed. We're just going.
What Epstein list? Yeah, that's a very solid point too. I think the last time I was excited about a launch was to see if SpaceX could actually catch the booster rocket when they caught it that day and stood it back up. And I was like, okay, that's insane. But the barrier to getting out there, I heard, and I'm no NASA scientist, but I heard there's a growing debris field of just shit that we've sent up there. Trash, things that have broken off of spacecraft, ISS debris, nuts and bolts. And these things are like flying around at a certain layer above the atmosphere at a pretty high rate of speed where like you have to they actually have maps of debris that they're tracking forever so that if you shoot a rocket through there, you don't have something hit your, a screw hit your window at 39,000 miles an hour, you know what I mean? Which is a real threat. Like, hadn't thought of that, but yeah, there's like this growing debris field and now all these Starlink satellites and different stuff, which you can see on a clear night,
Right.
fucking up your view and all that. So I always thought that was a more pragmatic risk of like, well, you got to time it just right. And then you got conditions on Earth where you're going, the weather, the launch stuff, everything's got a silver bullet its way through. But why we're doing it now if we're not going to land on the moon?
You bring up a really weird point. Like, how is it that we have technology that we can track a screw in space so that we don't throw a rocket into it?
Yeah.
But we cannot track a missing kid.
Sure.
Or a number of different things that seem vastly more important than that here on the planet. If we've got the technology to be able to track every piece of space debris in order to not damage a rocket that we're sending up, the overwhelming level of technology that must take, you would think that we would have a far easier time with a lot of the problems that we currently have on the ground or underwater or any number of different things that it makes me scratch my head when I think about the fact that they're expelling that much energy, money, science, time, all of that to such endeavors as if we've littered up there way too much.
Yeah.
So if we want to go back through it.
If I'm catching your premise right, I agree with you. I think we should catalog the kids and then launch them into space so we can keep track of them so that they can't be harmed or trafficked or any of that stuff or go missing. We'll know exactly on the radar.
You use the kids as clearing paths. You launch them into space to clear the debris and launch the missile right afterwards. They did this
on Serenity, didn't they? They strapped people to the front of the ship and
yeah. So that's what I meant by that. It's
okay, fair.
Let's utilize the technology properly.
No, you're right. It makes no sense at all until you put it in those terms, and then you go, but they can do all that down here and probably are.
Right.
Maybe not tracking the individual kids yet until we're all carrying a small machine in our pocket that can be tracked. Just saying. But yeah, they absolutely can.
Yeah. But this topic actually kind of dovetails perfectly into what I have set up for Conspiracy Corner.
Yes.
Because I think this might have a connective tissue to what's been going on in the space world, as if you will, the community of aliens. And so, because a lot of stuff has been going on in the recent 2 weeks or so that has caused for some concern, because at first they thought it was just a one-off or a two-off. But then when it became 8 scientists and Defense Link figures connected to sensitive U.S. nuclear, aerospace, and classified research programs have either vanished without a trace or died under mysterious circumstances, all within a matter of months of each other. So, and this was all kind of culminating with these key figures. All 8 people were involved directly with what was supposed to be a big reveal, a big, great reveal. Trump has even discussed the fact that he is going to open up some files, UFO files and such. And you've had a couple of key figures such as Matt Gaetz, who has been recently came out and said that, military people came and debriefed me, and I can't even talk about it because it's the stuff would be earth shattering if I even mentioned some of the things that they showed me and I saw. But you've got Monica Reza, aerospace engineer, disappeared while hiking in California in June of 25. No trace was ever found despite extensive searches. William McCasland, retired Air Force general, vanished in February of 2026 after leaving his New Mexico home. His wife has addressed UFO related theories regarding his disappearance. Melissa Casillas, Los Alamos lab staff, disappeared in June of 2025 after her phone was found wiped clean. She left her belongings behind. Anthony Chavez, also Los Alamos lab employee, disappeared in May of 2025 while walking in New Mexico with no phone or wallet. Carl Grillmeyer, a Caltech astrophysicist, shot and killed on his porch in February of 2026 following a prior carjacking incident involving a relative. Nuno Loureiro, MIT fusion researcher, shot and killed in his home in December of 2025. The case remains part of a complex mass shooting investigation. Jason Thomas, Novartis researcher, disappeared in December of 2025 and found dead in a Massachusetts lake in March of 2026. Police suspect no foul play.
Sure.
Frank Maywald, NASA JPL scientist, died in July of 2024. The absence of a disclosed cause of death has raised questions. Key connections is that they were all tied to research and NASA related and stuff, but also high-end intelligence stuff, and they were all had classified clearance for UFO related type of activities. So now what is being kind of proposed by a lot of people once they started connecting these dots is that with the reveal that they're going to be coming out with, like the disclosure, like a bunch of disclosure stuff, is that these were all going to be whistleblowers or people who can contradict a narrative. So when they come out and say, at least this is kind of what I'm thinking, is that when they come out and say, yes, we've had contact with aliens, they're going to bring peace, and they're going to bring peace to the Middle East, and they're going to bring in all your religions are wrong, da 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 da. These beings are here. They're in, they're here to help us.
Yeah.
That these individuals would all contradict that storyline, that narrative, and they know it. And so they were eliminated, if you will, from the narrative.
So extrapolate what you mean by contradict. Contradict that no, those aliens are not here for peace, or no, none of this is real.
Either or that they're even aliens, that they are interdimensional beings, also known as demons, that this is a big ruse, that they are going to be kind of trying to pull in, Revelation level type of end times kind of stuff, which would require a mass delusion via Project Bluebeam, via a narrative, via a lot of different kind of components, and that these guys would be wrenches in the machine that would create a problem. That's my personal theory on this, but I mean, even there was a where is it? So even if you watch there's a TMZ interview with a current sitting congressman, Representative Tim Burchett, makes stunning statements about the existence of alien life forms on Earth. And it's a really weird video because he basically says, I'm not allowed to talk about this. And the guy thinks he's joking, and he's like, not. So he's a Republican out of Tennessee, and he spoke to TMZ, and he made some amazing comments about the existence of alien life among us, claiming that he and others were recently briefed by a high-ranking government official. And he said 2 weeks prior. It is ironic that Burkett is talking about this as the world is watching the amazing Artemis 2 moon mission. But Rep Tim Burkett says that a member of our government has told him extraterrestrial beings have visited our planet, traveled on an otherworldly craft, and made contact with humans. The congressman from Tennessee joined TMZ Monday and asked him about the aliens. He didn't hold back. Now, they were actually, he implied in the way that he phrased things was that they were extra dimensional entities, not aliens. And he was pretty seriously toned when, if you watch the video, it's pretty crazy. And he's not some kind of loon, you know, he's a very serious-minded person, which only serves to make these claims more explosive. But it came on the heels of Matt Gaetz saying something very similar. And
yeah,
so
it's always dressed in the reasonable, approachable, level-headed person that really makes me want to dive in deep and be like, yes. But
yeah, but
if you're referencing this is just a demon possession type of thing, that seems more feasible to me than outer space.
I would say
men.
that interdimensional creatures, because we do live on a physical plane, and the Bible describes very, very specifically spiritual planes, and that we do not have the ability to go back and forth or even see back and forth. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other creatures that do, you know? So I think that it would make perfect sense to convince the world that Christianity's wrong, that aliens do exist. They're the ones who seeded life here and have been kind of playing, you know, ant farm with us, but we're about to hurt ourselves. So they came in to bring in peace.
That's the real backbone of intelligent design, not the creation theory.
Right.
Yeah.
So and that being that there is a large contingent of people who will easily be fooled by this.
Yeah, I've long said,
they're looking for it.
If the rapture has a shred of truth to it, then the best cover up for that is going to be an alien invasion or abduction, where it's been pop culture since pretty much the 60s, like the late 50s, early 60s. And it's like, it's so rooted in our culture, at least in Western culture,
that
we're
primed.
It's almost expected, where it's like, oh shit, I guess they were right. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
There will be more than just a flat toned response to that when it occurs. But yeah,
well,
absolutely.
You're starting to see the disillusion in the regular people. Every time they come out with a new disclosure thing, everyone's like, yeah, we know. And then they just kind of move on to do other things. And everyone's like, aren't you freaking out that they're admitting that they're aliens? And I was like, no. the whole world's been conditioned and primed for this.
Take me to the spaceship or I'm not buying in.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but even if the spaceship's here, you're going to find a lot less people are having full meltdowns like you would expect the human condition to do.
Right.
But instead, because they've been literally through media primed for 60 years that this was in the realm of possibilities, that they are going to be like, like, yeah, okay, cool. Are you gonna make sure we're all being peaceful and provide us with resources and make us like everything's handy dandy? And oh, you've got an intermediary, this guy who can talk with you. He may be a half breed. Oh, that's the Antichrist. Okay, got it. Like, he's the one. He's the ambassador. Okay, cool. Peace in the Middle East. Awesome. Perfect. Peace all over the world. Great. We love it. It's oh, like all religions were wrong. Here's the new religion.
Right.
Worship this. You only need one monetary system. This is all spelled out very specifically in prophetic texts from Isaiah to Revelation and everywhere in between. So, like, we have the blueprint for this. We just didn't understand the technology of what they were going to be able to capable of doing in 2026. I think that this tying in with the Artemis, maybe on their way back, they're going to bump into something, or, which, by the way, we totally blew our last week's pre-Easter
Yeah, the aliens
conspiracy
were
corner.
they were supposed to come.
Yeah, they were supposed to come on Easter.
Yep.
Like, I sent you this video like the day after. I was like, no, we missed this conspiracy that there was like a big deal.
Few things had to occur. Some star had to be read. Missiles had to be shooting between Israel and Iran, and it had to be Easter Sunday of 2026 in order for that prediction to land.
And
which
that guy
I'm glad
was
it
being
didn't.
interviewed by everybody.
Yeah,
Sean Ryan interviewed that guy.
I'm glad it didn't occur because I'm really looking forward to the August 12th we all lose gravity for some period of time piece. And I did not want this to occur before that. Real question though, while we've got the hats on, what would bother you more? Let's dispense with logic for a minute and say that the alien invasion that you are expected to believe could occur at any point in time, and you could take any reference point from any science fiction film you've ever seen, however you want, or knowing that we're able to recreate dire wolves, that someone recreates a full-size Tyrannosaurus Rex in just a couple of years and it gets out, and we just didn't know about it until it got out, like full Jurassic Park style. What bothers you more, heading out with the car keys in your hand and seeing a Tyrannosaurus Rex a block away, or the arrival of a spacecraft?
Arrival of a spacecraft.
Okay.
Yeah. T-Rex, yeah, scary but tangible.
Yeah.
And understandable. Yeah, it's a big mean creature that bites and chomps and stomps.
Mm-hmm.
It's the unknown of what the alien's motivations are and also what its capabilities are. So, much like the nostalgia era of the 80s, I have very early memories of the TV show V.
Yeah.
And V was this miniseries. It was a 2-part miniseries. They ended up doing a full series afterwards that I didn't really watch, but the miniseries really stuck with me because it was about this exact kind of concept with them contact with aliens. Aliens come down. They're really, they're big, huge benefactors. They love us. They're here to help us with all of our problems. Turns out that they're actually a bunch of lizard people that actually are feeding off of humans, and then there's a resistance that comes up that knew all along that it was bad. Obviously they're not gonna come down in red leather jumpsuits that look like a Michael Jackson costume,
which is unfortunate.
Which is unfortunate because I would be far more trusting.
As would I.
But in this particular case, I don't think that it would be dissimilar to something of that effect, that same kind of concept, where they come in with open arms and a olive branch that everybody eats up, and it turns out that their motivations were the opposite, is something that definitely makes me fear that more than a big scary dinosaur that if you have your wits about you, you can at least avoid.
I think I'm with you there. I think the worst case scenario is that the aliens arrive and they're vegan and they're like real judgmental, and they're like, you shouldn't be eating meat. Like, we're not going to eat any of you guys, and we totally could because we're like way superior and shit. And then you kind of have to like the whole world is like, well, now you can't eat meat anymore, and the World Health Organization was right the whole time, and shit like that. It's like, dude, can't they just be conquerors, and I get at least a shot to shoot back at them, even from a primitive weapon that I've got, Like, don't take away my tomahawks, all right? That to me is the worst case scenario. Like, at least I get to shoot back in one of those tyrannical scenarios, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, like the aliens are coexist vegans.
Yeah, like if the
And-
Vulcan from Star Trek really showed up and made first contact with Earth not because we're a pre-warp society, but because it was time or whatever, and they're like,
Yeah.
all stuck up and logic forward and look down on you for eating meat and all this stuff, and they only drink weird tea from different planets and shit, and it's like, dude,
Ugh.
come back later. Like I'm not none of us. I'm
No,
not ready
thanks.
for this. Wait till I'm gone, then you
No.
can have Earth all you want.
I don't-
You know?
I don't want that dinner guest.
No.
You know,
Nobody does.
we're putting the close sign out, and
Right.
we're just gonna come back when you guys have figured out how delicious beef is. So
That's it. I'd prefer one wants to eat me and I get to fight back rather than judge me for the way I live my life on my planet.
100%. I would much rather like die in battle with like conquering aliens than I would to be coexisting with a bunch of judgmental vegan aliens.
Yeah.
I fully agree. 100%. So, but yeah, so that's what's going on. We got a bunch of missing scientists. We got a couple of
I don't like any of this. Truly, because like all these reports, they definitely have some form of common thread. What that is, I don't know. It cannot just be coincidence that all these people in the specialized fields in the science community are just gone, and not just gone, but dead, except for the one gal that had a wiped phone and went for a hike with no phone and left all her shit where it was and then disappeared. I'm pretty sure she's gone too. But I don't like any of that. And I really wish there'd be a moment before I die where all the governments of the world are just transparent about all of it. And they're like, and if there is some sort of ship, like, here it is, come see. Let's all panic together that we're no longer the dominant species in the universe.
Yeah.
Because it seems that the sharing of knowledge, if you really look at the widespread good to a point, would actually probably help us prepare for whatever's next kind of thing. And that's why I think it's all horseshit. But it is not horseshit that these scientists are disappearing. And that is bothersome. So
I'm
so I guess what we're trying to say is drop out of school. Don't be a scientist.
Thanks for like cutting to the chase on that, because that's really where I was kind of going the scenic route to get there. But drop out of school, do a lot of drugs, live for the now, kids. But
remember when these hats on, we were suspending all credibility. We can say whatever we want now.
But as far as this goes, my personal theory, is that these people are being disappeared for a reason. And I think it's because they know the actual truth, not the truth that needs to be the narrative. And people are salivating for the narrative. They want this alien thing to be real. They want to have for them to come out with what, the aliens are here. We've been talking to it for a long time. All of your technology is based off of that. Like, I think that that's what the public at large truly wants, because it would answer so many of life's questions for them and create an intellectual roadblock that they don't have to go past. Oh, this is the end of the road. I'm good. And so I think that these people may have been kind of privy to some knowledge that, well, actually, it's not what they're going to tell you it is. It is something completely different. Mm-hmm. And you can't have people just floating around. That's going to make the establishment of whatever governmental agency or whatever president or anything else says and be combative.
You cannot discredit the fortune teller, whoever that fortune teller may be.
Yes. So that was Conspiracy Corner.
All right. Damn, what a good one.
Man, it's warming up in this neck of the woods. It jumped up to a whopping 72 degrees today.
Oh man.
And it's that hat was already too hot.
I know. It's 90 right here. And I was sitting there like, man, I'm like, intimately understand what a baked potato goes through shortly before I consume it.
So, let's go into some more light fare.
Let's do
Let's
it.
go on to something.
This one
So
I
this
love.
week,
You sent me this a couple of
I
times
thought
throughout
you'd
the
enjoy
week.
this.
This is this week's dope. It's so much fun. I'm a fan of this one
Yeah.
big time.
So I came across this and I immediately had to jump on it. And like he mentioned, I sent Angel a bunch of the videos because it's so charming that it just absolutely wrapped me up immediately. And it is a series that is on all social media platforms and including his own website. And it is a children's author by the name of Wes Hargis, WESHARGIS.com is his website. And he is a children's author and illustrator. And he used to be an illustrator for like newspaper illustrations and stuff like that, but he kind of went on. He's an author and illustrator living in the Arizona desert. He began his career as an editorial cartoonist and honed his illustration craft late in life or late at night. He likes to draw on scratchy watercolor paper, but these days he mostly uses a big tablet. When Wes is not writing or illustrating, he loves exploring the desert and making Mexican food. He and his wife have 3 opinionated kids, 2 evil cats, and a clueless dog. And what he has done with a particular series is called The Hollow, HALLOW. And The Hollow is a series that he has put together on Instagram, where he currently has 81,000 followers on, but he's also on TikTok and Facebook and a bunch of others. But what's amazing about this is he illustrates these cartoons, these like stop motion cartoons, while he's telling a story about him and his twin brother growing up in the mid 70s to mid 80s and all their adventures as kids outside with shovels and with weird friends from the neighborhood and weird lizards and creatures that he brought home to mom. And he tells these tales that are full of nostalgia and humor. And while he's doing it, you see him illustrating it. His hand is kind of sketching around, and you can see him illustrating it. And then you get to see kind of like the rolled out, kind of watercolored finished product. And he slightly animates some of it. And so it just has this just unbelievable kind of Bill Watterson feel to it.
Yeah.
So like Calvin and Hobbes kind
they're
of
all like what 2 minutes or less most of the time.
2 minutes or
just
less.
Little anecdotes about his life with his brother or something that happened in his past, and they're all really cool.
Yep.
Like super fun.
Yeah, like when they battled the Wasp Queen or the Chili Duel at the Old West, and George the Lizard, and the different forts that they would make, and he'll tell these quirky, fun little stories about him and his twin brother growing up, and the boogeyman from across the street, and his first broken heart, and all sorts of fun little stories that are all just delightful, wholesome childhood stories that have a ton of like it takes you to where he was.
Yeah.
And he's so good at telling a 2-minute story that controls your thoughts. You're there with those kids, with that group of ragamuffin kids with all the weird nicknames, and you're dirty in the backyard with them, digging holes for no reason, pulling out cat skulls because the lady who owned the house before had a whole bunch of cats that she would just bury back there, and your mother freaking out when you line them up on the dining room table. All of these kind of just hilarious stories about him growing up, and it just tells you that he not only had a great childhood, you could tell that he really loved his parents and his brother and his other siblings, but that he had the ability to remember these stories at such a young age,
Yeah.
and that he was such an outdoor kid that these just kind of gelled with him, that he remembers these in little pockets of fun. And I absolutely adore this series. If he ever puts out a physical publication of any of this, I will probably buy it because the illustrations are beautiful. He really understands, even on a very like fundamental level, he really understands anatomy, even though he does big-eyed cartoony kind of feel to it. Their limbs and their hands and everything move properly.
Yeah.
And the backgrounds are gorgeous. The way that he maps out the neighborhood is really beautifully done. He is just a master at his craft, and I think more people need to recognize this guy. He is kind of the newer generation of what Bill Watterson did with Calvin and Hobbes. You know, it definitely has that reminiscent feel to it, but highly recommend it. The Hollow by Wes Hargis. Did you have anything to say on this?
I thought they were super cool. Yeah, it I think the relational point brings me back because I was the kid outside rooting around in the dirt a lot when I was little. And so it's very automatic to connect the dots that he connects in the stories that he tells and stuff like that, where you're like, oh, this is pretty sick. But they're also not like a 30-minute feature on a part of his childhood for some pretentious variant story behind the story type of thing. It's just something that is
very digestible.
He probably thought would be really fun, and a bunch of people really related to it, I bet. And he just keeps doing it. But it's super cool. I encourage people to check it out as well.
As of on his Instagram page, as far as I can tell, he has 30 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he just keeps making more, and they're all just amazing as the last one. So, yeah, highly recommend it. It'll bring a little joy to your life. It'll bring little pockets of nostalgia, instead of worrying about whether the aliens are gonna invade or we're gonna bomb Iran. So, yeah. So, but that is the dope for the week.
It's a transition and a callback. So you watched Primitive War this week?
I did.
Let's
watch
talk about
Primitive War this week. So actually, I watched this last night because I had watched a movie prior in the week that my son Oliver and I watched a trailer and thought it looked really funny. And yeah, it was funny, but it was like a sketch comedy type of funny that just went on too long, and it didn't feel even reviewable. Like you would, it's such a niche thing that the guys from Workaholics, I think is the name of the show. There's like three guys, like a sketch comedy group, and the movie was called Please Don't Destroy the Treasure of Foggy Mountain. And I thought it would be a fun one because it even had like Conan O'Brien in it and stuff like that, but it really didn't have anything worth even reviewing. So I scrapped it and went, I'm not even reviewing that. And I'm watching the new season of Paradise right now, but I'm not even halfway through it. So I can't give that a review yet. So last night in a scramble, I found this movie because I had been wanting to watch it for a while, and the trailer I'd seen about a year ago, and I got kind of excited for it. And I was hoping that it was going to be everything I hoped and wished for. And it was everything that I guess I should have expected out of it, rather than what I hoped and wished for. So it's called Primitive War. It came out in 2025, and it comes from a director by the name of Luke Spark. And if you look into his stuff looks interesting, but I'd never heard of any of the other things he'd done. So, however, it's a big production house, Samuel Goldwyn Films, and it's set in Vietnam in 1968. And it follows a group of kind of commandos, I wouldn't say Green Berets, but like they're called the Vultures. And they get brought in after being in another mission. They get brought in immediately by the commander, who's played by Jeremy Piven of all people, which was a selling point for me because I like Jeremy Piven. But it stars Ryan Quanten, which, if you are a True Blood fan from the Showtime vampire show True Blood, he was the brother in that.
Yeah, I missed that
I think
one.
is the most notable thing he did. But he also did like the Knights of Badassery or something like that, with D&D kind of role-playing game movie. He has some notoriety and some kind of heavy lifting star power. And then Tricia Helfer, who was the hot blonde in the remake of the Battlestar Galactica from the early 2000s.
Yeah. Unforgettable.
So she was another one of the key players in a cast of a bunch of kind of quasi knowns, but they're basically super group of military guys who get brought in by Jeremy Piven immediately after a mission. They're kind of bummed out that they're getting sent out again, but apparently they lost a contingent of Green Berets in this particular part of the Vietnam jungle. So they get sent in to find them. Well, the brass and the higher ups are all kind of under the assumption that it has something to do with this Russian army contingent that had been kind of noticed in that area, and that they had some intelligence saying that they were actually building up for some type of super weapon bomb of some kind that we're developing out there. And so they get dropped in, and before you know it, they start realizing that there's some large creatures out here that are kind of stalking them. And then they run into Tricia Helfer, who's a scientist, says, "Come on, before you get killed." They realize that there's dinosaurs everywhere, and big ones. And so... and they're all over the place, from everything from raptors to brontosauruses, and there's T-Rexes running around and all sorts of stuff. And they are basically trying to escape this. And she tells them that basically it's not a super weapon. I mean, it can be. It can turn into a thing that'll rip apart space and time. But essentially, they've been creating portals, time portals, to try to alter time and stuff like that out there. And what it did is it let in a whole bunch of dinosaurs. So they brought her in as an expert in dinosaurs.
Is Tricia Helfer like playing a scientist straight, or is she supposed to be like the hot chick?
Yeah.
Like Dr. Christmas Jones, played by Denise Richards. Like, am I supposed to buy that you're like an astrophysicist in this Bond film, or what's going on here kind of thing?
Yeah. Okay. So... and that's part of it, is that she's playing, not only is she playing a straight role,
because she's been pretty outspoken about being the hot chick on the show and how much she hated that. So I was curious.
Well, she's a widow.
Okay.
She's the only one left of the team, because the dinosaurs killed everybody else. But to cope with having been out there for a year and a half by herself, she decided to get into heroin. And it's like a junkie. And
I mean, sometimes you got to.
And it's like openly doing it in front of these soldiers, like, hold on just a second. And then like shooting herself up. They're like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "That's how I cope out here.
Gotta take the edge off."
Right, exactly. And so, yeah, it was a crazy movie.
Oh my God.
It was everything I expected. But I think I explained it earlier. Like, if you took... how did I explain it? If you took like a Morgan Freeman Nat Geo dinosaur documentary and the animation that is on that, and Jurassic Park, and it had a baby, and then you had Platoon and Predator, and they had a baby, and then those two had a baby, you have Primitive War. And so it is it didn't know what it wanted to be. And like when you're hiring people like Jeremy Piven, you're expecting there to be some caliber of sharp wit, being thrown
Right.
at you at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And it didn't really give him that. It didn't give him a lot of space to do that. You didn't really know what Jeremy Piven's role was, because at first he's the guy who's orchestrating everything. Then he's considered the bad guy, and by the end he's not. And then Trisha Helfer, like her whole heroine thing didn't even apply to the story
Yeah.
at all.
Doesn't sound like it.
It's got this ripping soundtrack from all of the, Vietnam era Creedence Clearwater Revival kind of stuff going on. The action is really good. There's a lot of like cool dinosaur fight battle scenes, a lot of cool kills. And the main character, that the Ryan Quanten guy, he's serious all the way through. He's the leader of the team, and like he does a really good job of acting at a level that the movie didn't deserve.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And the movie didn't know what it wanted to be. Did it want to be an action kind of thrill ride? Did it want to be a serious movie because you've got a guy who's got on the team who's got such heavy PTSD from being a sniper in Vietnam that he's got tics and repeats stuff to the point that when his friends start getting killed by dinosaurs, he loses it and then puts a gun under his chin and blows his head off in front of everybody and everyone mourns him? Or the deep moments when they're like, we can get this through this together, or guys bleeding out, like giving their last testaments, and then having like dick jokes follow it up. And like it didn't know what it wanted to be. And then like, or this over-the-top sci-fi dinosaurs pouring through portals while it absolutely decimates an entire Russian contingent of soldiers at the end while they're trying to defuse the sci-fi generator thing that's all blue lights and spinning so that it doesn't become a bomb and blow everybody up. And ultimately the ending was just kind of like head scratching. Like, this is the direction you went with this ending? You had like 4 different options and you went with this one? Okay. Was it entertaining? Yeah, in a really weird way, because you were slingshotted back and forth between emotions of what you wanted this movie to be, but it never really kind of settled on any one thing. Was it rewatchable? Yeah, for a number of reasons. For the absurdity of certain parts, like it would make a really great kind of cult classic where people kind of repeat certain lines, and like kind of Mystery Science Theater 3000, the kind of the ridiculous nature of some of the stuff going on. But just kind of fun. And dinosaurs, like you're gonna do a repeat watch on anything with dinosaurs. So but was it as good as I had hoped it would be? No, not really. So I had to really think about this one. I'm ultimately giving this one 6.5 megs with a toothy end.
Okay.
So worth a watch, as long as you go into it not expecting anything. Just go into it with an open mind and just kind of go, here we go. Like, what is going to happen here? So, and that's about it. So,
well, I just asked ChatGPT if it was likely that it had written Hollywood movie scripts, particularly ones that have made it to the screen, and specifically, did it have a hand in Primitive War? And the short answer is no. And it says the film Primitive War was written by Ethan Pettis, the author of the original novel. So I guess this was a book adaptation.
It was, yeah.
It was an independent production, not a traditional Hollywood studio script. And in fact, major studios rejected the project, so it was made outside of that system. So very unlikely in any meaningful or trackable way did AI have a hand in it. But it also goes on to say that it has no personal experiences, credits, or a career in Hollywood. Thanks, ChatGPT. Just checking. Sometimes you never know. Well, that's fun. 6.5 to the end, man.
Yeah. So
Jeez.
it's fun for a watch. I highly recommend it. Like it doesn't quite reach the. It's not as bad as like a Sci-Fi Channel movie,
Yeah.
but it's not quite the CG animation level of the Jurassic Park world or
Yeah.
series. That's why I say that it has kind of that Morgan Freeman Nat Geo kind of element to it,
Yeah.
because that's where your expectation should be. Like you're watching one of those like fake animal documentaries, but it's based on dinosaurs like they've been putting out on
Yeah.
Netflix and stuff. That level. So
Nice.
yeah.
Well,
But
super
okay.
fun. Jeez. Primitive War. I'm probably going to check this out.
I think
I
you'll have fun with it.
I think that brings us to our Overlord tip of the week.
It does.
We're trucking right along. There's been 23. We're at number 24. Tips on how to be your
Absolutely.
own evil overlord. Do it the right way.
Yeah. So oftentimes when you are in charge of a large group of people,
Mm-hmm.
people look up to you, you
Mhm.
are leading, whether it be a country, a small region, or just an island, or whatever the case may be, and you became kind of the key figurehead in that. It's really hard to battle ego, because
True.
you have to remember what your mission is and what your motivation is, and that you're not subject to falling into the kind of the emperor's kind of idea where you're like everyone's at your beck and call. You still have a job, and that's actually paramount to what is going on when you're trying to run a regime, when you're trying to be the overlord. Now, I will maintain a realistic assessment of my strengths and weaknesses, understanding where my flaws are, where I can check in my brain and go, that's probably not for me, because I know that I don't do well in that arena.
Yeah.
I do better in these arenas, right? So
Little
even though this
self-reflection.
takes, right, absolutely. And even though this takes some of the fun out of the job, or at least I will never utter the line, no, this cannot be. I am invincible.
Yeah.
Because after that, death is usually instantaneous.
Yeah. Yeah.
The minute you utter those words that I am invincible, because you've taken on this kind of godlike ego where people worship you and bring you everything you need, you're immediately vulnerable to any number of attacks, because you're blinded by the idea that you're surrounded entirely by people who like you.
It happens, dude. And I've had friends of mine say outlandish things that they're serious about. They're like, look, and I mean this, if you ever see me reach an age where I put on socks and Crocs at the same time, I want you to
I'm putting you down.
just punch me as hard as you can. Don't
Yeah.
mention anything, and I'll just know and be like, you're right. We talked about this
right.
a long time ago.
Yeah.
That's fine. So yeah, I think a little self-reflection is good to keep the focus wide.
Yeah.
Keep your
absolutely.
surroundings in check. That's great news on being an overlord. Tip number 24 this week.
That is correct.
My goodness.
So,
Awesome. Anything else this week? I think that covers our show notes.
yeah, no, that covers everything. I think at this point, it's probably a little early, but I'm kind of playing around with the idea of making another Vegas visit here. I got asked, but I'm kind of drumming up business if I can to make it worth going down there, as far as like monetarily. Obviously, there's other value for me to go down there to go see you, but as far as monetarily, I kind of have to make sure that it's worth that going down there. I got asked by Mad Monk Tattoo if I would be coming for a visit. I said I've been thinking about it, but I have to kind of set some stuff up. So if any of you out there are in the Vegas area and you want to get tattooed by me, hit me up. and I will add you to the list and make it see if it's worth it for me coming down. So, but hopefully, it'll be what I'm looking for is for the middle of next month. So
cool.
But yeah, outside of that, I got nothing.
Nice. All right. Well then, we will see everyone hopefully next week, and have an awesome night.
Good night, everybody.